Everyone knows Carlos Boozer. He is one of the most hated players in the NBA and earned a reputation as someone who plays only for the money, kind of like a mercenary. The hate followed him all throughout his career, even when he switched teams, regardless of how well he was playing. He's just that player that everyone decided to hate. But how did he earn this reputation? Did he deserve the reputation as the biggest gold digger in NBA history? If you want to find out, keep watching as we unpack the story of Carlos Boozer. Now before we go on, make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications too for the culture. Without further ado, let's get right into it. Born in Germany but raised in Alaska, Carlos Boozer is the greatest athlete that has ever come out of Alaska. I mean, you can have your favorites, but the fact remains that he achieved more than any other athlete or sportsman from Alaska ever will. I mean, he literally won 3 times in his career. Till someone beats that, he's their greatest. He had a relatively unremarkable high school career, and then he moved to Duke, where he really began impressing, winning a title in his sophomore year and generally dominating his peers. He wasn't the most athletic or explosive player all his career, but he had a good feel for the game and was able to catch a lot of rebounds despite his relatively smaller build. By the time he was drafted, Boozer had proved beyond reasonable doubt that he would be able to compete with the best of them, at least on the offensive side, because boy, his defense was atrocious. But hey, we're going to come back to that one later. A combination of his defensive fragility and his unremarkable physical prowess led to Carlos Boozer being picked as the overall 35th pick in the draft. Even though he had the right fundamentals, there was no way to predict how he was going to do in the NBA. Everyone agreed he was a terrific player, but there were doubts whether he could play as a power forward in a league where your position or role in the team mattered more than whether you can play well. Boozer joined the Cleveland Cavaliers at a good time. Good time for him, not for them, because they were just coming off a horrific season where they finished 29-53. It was great for Boozer because that meant he got to play more minutes, starting 56 games and playing a total of 81 games in his first season and averaging 10 points and 7 rebounds per game. Nothing out of the world, but then again, it was impressive enough to help him get into the second team of the all-rookie team that season. Clearly, his offensive prowess was covering up for his poor defensive ability. At this point, you're probably wondering where the twist comes in, and how Carlos Boozer became hated by almost all the fans in the NBA, and we'll get to that shortly. In Boozer's sophomore season with the Cavs, he had the opportunity to play with LeBron James. Boozer did not really recognize LeBron's potential to be the greatest of all time, and he once said there were better players in LeBron's position on their team already. I mean, I get it, there's no way that he's going to say a rookie just out of high school was better than a veteran NBA player, but in hindsight, Boozer should have put some respect on LeBron's name. Perhaps that's where the hate started from, but the Cavs fans did not really turn on Boozer till transfer season. The year LeBron joined, he had a great partnership with Boozer, and Boozer had a great season too, going on to establish himself as one of the best young players in the league. The chemistry was palpable from the start, with LeBron on the perimeter and Boozer in the paint. Carlos Boozer averaged 15 points and 11 rebounds that year, and he was on his way to a promising future as a double-double player. Boozer was part of the Cavs' new look, a secondary component of something special that would last for years in a city where everything sports-related was fleeting. That is, until Boozer pulled a fast one on the Cavs. Boozer had a 6-year, $700,000 per year deal with the Cavs, but at this point they wanted to reward him with a new $41 million 6-year contract. But first, he had to agree to opt out of his current contract and become a free agent. Boozer agreed to this arrangement according to the Cavs, although till this day, Boozer denies agreeing to the arrangement, which seems kind of funny because why would the Cavs agree to drop his contract if he didn't agree to that condition? That just seems like an obvious lie. When he became a free agent, Boozer got offers from other NBA teams, but the highest offer was from the Utah Jazz, who offered a contract of nearly $70 million to Boozer. Now, I'm not saying my decisions are fueled by a love for money, but I know for sure that I'd pick the $70 million contract over the $41 million contract. I mean, no offense to Cavs fans, but it's business, not personal. And Boozer had the same idea that I did, and he picked the Utah Jazz over building something special with LeBron and the Cavs. When Carlos Boozer left Cleveland, abandoning a city of 400,000 people, his devoted fans began to despise everything about the young power forward. They despised his mid-range jump shot from both ends of the court. They despised his aggressive rebounding, even though they had grown to rely on it. They despised the fact that he went to Duke and spoke in a Duke-like manner. Cavs fans despised Carlos both as a player and as a person that they had never met. Carlos Boozer had to deal with the negative consequences of a financial decision for the first time in his short life. But he also had a new $70 million contract which the Cavs couldn't match. One of the fantasies that fans held on to is the notion that players suffer when they leave one team and join another. I mean, in an ideal world, that's what would happen, right? Good thing we don't live in an ideal world, because Carlos Boozer's arrival as a member of the Utah Jazz was not a tragedy. Rather, he was welcomed and celebrated. They gave him the love that he used to get from the Cavs fans, but it was short-lived. The mockery would come later. Like I mentioned earlier, Boozer didn't have a great defense. He doesn't challenge shots at the rim, block shots, or change his delivery. He isn't tall enough to cause hesitation, and Boozer has never been physically strong enough to punish those he protects. He makes a basket, but does not dunk. He shoots jump shots. He consistently gets double-doubles. He is a good teammate, but he will never be the best player on his team, and he is not a leader. As the team's second best player, as Utah fans discovered, it was difficult to rely on Boozer when the season was on the line. In the 2008 playoffs against the Lakers, Carlos Boozer shot 31% in Game 6, the final game before the Jazz were eliminated. In the 2009 playoffs against the Lakers, Boozer shot 37% in the closeout game, which resulted in an 11-point loss. The Utah Jazz were swept in another first-round matchup against the Lakers in 2010. In Game 4, Boozer shot 31%, scored 10 points, and was booed by the home fans, who had learned the truth about Carlos Boozer by this point. He was prepared to leave Utah in the same manner that he had left Cleveland. Boozer went on to sign for the Chicago Bulls for $16 million per year, but perhaps that is where Carlos Boozer went wrong, attaching himself to a city that would never be generous or forgiving to him. Chicago is and has always been a tough, hard-nosed sports town that expects its heroes to carry their dreams and handle the NBA's dark places and come out on top. It was an unfavorable environment for Boozer to luxuriate in his contract and deliver less than what he promised. His playoff agony returned in 2011 when the Bulls advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat. Boozer shot 16% in Game 5, the championship game. He had 5 points. Something about that performance didn't make sense because he had 20 points in the previous game and 26 points in Game 3. However, in Game 5, he appeared unhappy and lost. His confidence had dwindled. It was hardly indicative of what $16 million player was expected to deliver in his career's biggest series. Chicagoans never forgave Carlos Boozer for what they saw as a basketball atrocity. The Game 5 would live on in Bulls lore for the rest of his life. A 3-year hate affair ensued, with Boozer becoming the focal point of Bulls fans' collective rage. He exemplified the worst of the NBA, a player with a bloated salary who underperforms his contract and then acts surprised that the fans don't love him. By the time all was said and done, Boozer had earned the collective hate of the fans of 3 major franchises. And because his name rhymes with loser, most fans started calling him that. While some of it was Boozer's fault, much of it was not. When he was at his best, Boozer made the All-Star team twice in a row. His best was during his Utah Jazz years, where his team was eliminated from the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals and semifinals during those All-Star years. Although Boozer bears the brunt of the criticism and blame, Deron Williams also underperformed. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If there's one thing about Carlos Boozer, it's that there is nothing he can do to stop the hate that comes his way. It is his particular burden. It started in Cleveland when he took the money and refused to look back. And honestly, I'd personally take the hate if it comes with that kind of money. And don't forget to drop a like below and hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys in the next one.